Good evening. Welcome to Steve's Place. It's Sunday, 6 p.m. in the Pacific, July 20th. And I'm happy to see everyone get here safe and sound. Tonight, we're going to have our guest is going to be talking about, about Cacye electrotherapy. For those of you who don't know, Edgar Cayce was somewhat of a prophet that lived in Kentucky. They call him the sleeping prophet, and he had his visions all the time. And he came up with all kinds of cures in that, which were remarkably efficient. But in the meantime, I'd like to remind everyone we have the Tesla Tech Conference coming up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, August 6th to 10th. We got less than a month. If you haven't signed up, now's the time to sign up. We got a 25% discount. We're extending it one more day here, to try to encourage you to get signed up and come to it. I mean, it's quite the bargain. We have more than 20 speakers. We have people who are coming that aren't even on our schedule, and they'll be there. And you're going to have a chance to sit down and meet these people in the evening, break some bread with them, pick their brain, and ask them the questions that you've always wanted to ask, or maybe share your ideas with other people who think like you do. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. I can't encourage you to get signed up enough. And if you can't come, boo-hoo, you still don't have to miss everything. We have the live stream. The live stream is available. It includes not only the presentations, but we have presentations between the presentations. We have these sidebars going on while they're changing out the speakers and everything. So there's a whole lot of material you're not going to get any other way than by watching that live feed, or if you're there, you can watch them live on the side there, pulling together some of this stuff. It's going to be a great conference. If you've never been to a conference, come to this one. I guarantee you have a great time. You're going to learn a lot. And if you have teenagers in the family, maybe they're your grandkids or they may be your kids, bring them. They're free. I mean, what better opportunity to get kids interested in science than have something like this, where there's lots of sparks and gadgets to play with, And we're throwing in the workshop on drones for free, So you can get the kit there and build it right there on the spot and take it home and terrorize your neighbors with your own drone when you get home. So, yeah, don't miss this show. It's the show of a lifetime. Like I say, we're extending the 25% out one more day. The hotel is extending their rates out until Friday. So if you haven't made your reservations, and we got great rates, $120 for two people, 1 to 2 people, includes breakfast. We have a breakfast bar for free, and it runs from like 6 to 9 in the morning. And if you're running late, you just grab your thing at the buffet there and bring it right on into the lecture room, the lecture hall. We'll have classroom seating, so you'll be able to sit your meal right in front of you and eat, and while you're listening to the first speaker there. You can't beat it. I can't encourage you to come to this conference enough. It's going to be held at the Crown Plaza Hotel. Crown Plaza, this will be about the third or fourth, probably about the fourth one we've had there. Beautiful hotel. They got 2 swimming pools, one indoor, one outdoor, that you can take advantage of. Everything's all nice and compact, During lunch, I think they're supposed to be putting together like a food bar there where you can walk in, grab something, and go. And yeah, here we have a question here. Does that cover 2-person room and breakfast? Yes, but that's every night. It's per night. So anyway, you're going to have a great deal if you do come. I guarantee it. So we have everything this year. I mean, we are making such a great step towards the quantum world. It's unbelievable. With the radionics, portion coming in, and we're going to have working equipment there. It's not just theoretical. So what can I say? Anyway, and then I guess, the only other thing is, don't forget we have a YouTube channel. So if you want to go to YouTube, click on the QR code there. That will take you to teslatech.info, and there'll be a link from there to our YouTube channel. I can't encourage people to sign up for YouTube enough. That's what keeps us going during the year. We have over 1,500 videos up there. We have a couple hundred, probably about a third of them are free. But the members only is what brings us our bread and butter and keeps us going. So anyway, without further ado, let me introduce Fred Pollard. Fred, welcome to the show. And let me get this thing out of our way here. And okay. And do you want to tell us about yourself, Fred? How did you get started?
Sure. So like everybody here, I've had a passion for technology and energy all my life. And I'm still young at heart, even though I have gray hair in some places and lack of hair in others. But overall, 22 years in the semiconductor industry, mostly in R&D. And now I've left the semiconductor industry, and of all places, I ended up in the utility industry, but still with power. And I'm excited at the opportunity with Tesla Tech. I did not discover Tesla Tech until very recently. My first conference was last year. I got to meet Steve and a whole bunch of people. I've created new friends, new opportunities, and just very exciting. Last month, I had an opportunity to present the violet ray at a ARE Edgar Cayce conference, and I sent the slide deck over to Steve, and he asked me if I could bring this forward to us, and I'm happy to do so and share. This is a work in progress, as everything is, but I think there's some neat things here going on. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And at the end, I'll share my email with everybody. Let's see. I'm not sure what, there it is. So we're going to be discussing Cayce's electrotherapy, mostly the devices and their uses. And so I wanted to share with everyone the equipment that makes up the electrotherapy devices that Edgar Cayce brought forward to everybody. So there's the violet ray here, and there's an ultraviolet lamp made by mercury quartz, and there's an infrared lamp, and we're going to talk about this. This presentation is mostly going to focus on the violet ray for obvious reasons. So the type of electrotherapy devices here, the violet ray, it's a handheld device that uses high frequency, high voltage, low amperage electricity to produce the violet ray. It's a combination of visible light and ultraviolet light, and because of the electrostatic charges, it does create ozone. The next machine is the mercury quartz ultraviolet lamp. It's a type of gas discharge lamp that uses an electric arc through vaporizing mercury molecules, and it produces ultraviolet light. And I might add, in different spectrums. There's also an infrared lamp. This is a lamp that emits infrared radiation, a form of also electromagnetic radiation with wavelengths much longer than our visible light. And I think most of you know that. So Edgar Cayce, born in 1877, and he passed away in 1945, just right towards the end of World War II. So Edgar was an American clairvoyant who gave readings while in a trance state. Most of the readings centered on medical issues where people asked questions. He would diagnose their diseases and recommend treatments for their ailments. Cacye went into a trance readings. His readings expanded beyond the medicine to include life readings. And life readings are where you explore a person's inner conflicts and needs. He often made references to astrology, karma, reincarnation, dreams, afterlife, past lives, and more. He also expounded on global prophecies, climate or geologic changes that could take place, and lost history of mythical cultures such as Atlantis and Lemuria. He had no recollection after he went into a trance and came out of any of the information he shared with people. And he woke up from his sessions just, how did it go? And it was kind of unique. He did over 14,300 transcribed reading sessions, and they're available for everybody through the Association of Research Enlightenment, ARE, and they're located in Virginia Beach. There's also readings that took place that weren't transcribed, and so overall the belief is there's 15,000 or more readings out there. But Cacye described himself as a devout Christian, and he denied being a spiritualist or communicating with spirits. He is regarded as a founder and the principal source of many beliefs that go into the New Age movement. You know, he's brought forward natural ways of healing, and it's kind of exciting. I'm older. I like it. So we're going to talk about the violet ray device here. And so let's start off with Nikola Tesla. He actually invented the violet ray device. He did this early in the 20th century, initially developed it for therapeutic purposes, utilizing the Tesla coil to generate high frequencies, high voltage, and electrical currents. He used this invention, or came up with this invention, and had the opportunity to use it on himself, allegedly, due to a car accident. And he had to heal his bumps and bruises. He further gave that patent away for free to help mankind. And it's kind of interesting to kind of see what goes on. Edgar Cayce, he promoted the violet ray quite a bit. And so 900 of his 15,000 readings are specific to the violet ray itself. He used it for conditions, recommended uses for rheumatism, nervous ailments, acne, hair loss, even gonorrhea, and a lot more. It was believed the device stimulated the nerves and circulatory system, the nervous system and circulatory system, promoting circulation and clearing toxins out of the body. Edgar Cayce Clinic was established in Virginia Beach, and a lot of prominent founders and benefactors decided that the information he had should be brought to the public, and so they created this clinic. And it utilized the violet ray during electrotherapy sessions, and a lot of times for pain, skin conditions, and spinal issues. The short history of the violet ray is kind of interesting. It was popular in the early 20th century, and many manufacturers started building these units because the intellectual property was available and they didn't have to pay anything for it. And a lot of people thought this was the type of machine to help everybody. Renew Life, Fitzgerald, and Fisher were three of the most prominent manufacturers, and from what I can tell, they built some really good quality equipment. You know, if you find these things that are 100 years old today. The violet ray devices were promoted as a cure for various ailments, including dandruff, rheumatism, and even impotence. It fell out of favor, though, due to questionable effectiveness. It was later considered a form of quack medicine, and there was a lot of people who kind of came in and promoted their machines to do all kinds of crazy things, and they shouldn't have done that. And that's how the quack medicine part of it came about. But still today, these devices, violet rays, are sold in Europe, and unfortunately they're banned in some countries like the US in the sense that you can't claim any therapeutic medical claims. However, there's a resurgence of these violet rays, and so beauticians and dermatologists, doctors, are still using the violet ray devices to treat known conditions such as acne, dried out skin, minor muscle pains, and tension. And it has been proven that it stimulates circulation. So that's the good part. So the way we kind of look at this for this presentation is Nikola Tesla and Edgar Cayce together. Nikola Tesla and Edgar Cayce were contemporaries who, despite not directly collaborating, they both had connections with the violet ray device. Tesla, as you know, the brilliant inventor, he credited the development of the Tesla coil, a key component of the violet ray, and the rest, as we know, is history. Cayce, on the other hand, he's known as the father of holistic medicine, frequently referenced the violet ray in his psychic readings, and he recommends it for all kinds of different ailments. And each of the ailments he recommended them for, they actually helped a lot of people and are today. This particular slide has a reference to different ailments on the left, and then the number of persons that would have these ailments and the number of readings associated with these ailments, and then the actual reading numbers. And so the reading numbers represent people, individuals. It was felt that if you were an individual and you were given a reading, it'd be better to hide the name for fear of just making people's information public. And so rather than people's names, there's numbers. There's a lot of speculation of who has what number now, going back in history. But some of the people who were known to have numbers is Ford, the inventor of the car, his friend Firestone, as well as Thomas Edison. And they had readings periodically. Blumenthal, he also had many readings with Edgar Cayce. And being the philanthropist he is, he managed to find a way to fund the hospital, the build of it in Virginia Beach. So I just thought that would be kind of interesting to share with people. If you go to the ARI site, you can find information like this. This particular batch of information was associated with something called animated ash, taken internally. I like to call it carbon. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But for right now, don't forget there's ash and it's internal, and we're going to go into that with more detail. So Cayce's electrotherapy used in almost 900 readings. So based on what you just saw with readings, there was no discernible pattern as to which device was used in which cases. However, what I shared with you was the violet ray, but in the 900 readings, there was different machines that he had in electrotherapy that were used. The violet ray was used most often in serious cases that involved cancer. For localized cancer, electrotherapy, violet ray is used, But believe it or not, it's not at the cancer location. You'd have to talk to a medical professional and find out where the nerve ganglia is located that the cancer area is associated with, and go and use the violet ray procedure, but never on the cancer affected area. Now, for lymph tumors, electrotherapy was used in a combination fashion. So solar plexus would be the first place to use the violet ray on. This would be an unlocalized cancer in the lung. And so electrotherapy was usually used the first day of the upper dorsal area over the lungs. And then the next treatment, the next day, it was used over the frontal area over the lungs. And so oftentimes he would move it back and have you use it in the one side and then the other side. So these are examples of violet ray systems. This is what I happen to have, so I snap some pictures and share it with you guys. So the 40-watt older machines, they were kind of introduced around 1891. Nikola Tesla got a patent, his first patent, under the system of electric lightning, lightning, and that led to quite a few other patents associated with the violet ray, and the information that he got from his experiments. The next one in the middle here is a 30-watt system. This is more modern technology. It's not electromagnetic, and it has solid state hardware built into it. It doesn't have the spark gap though, and that's important because we're going to talk about the spark gap. And it uses switching transistors to feed a Tesla coil, and so it's oscillating a signal into the Tesla coil, so the Tesla coil can increase the power to the 50,000 volts. And then there's another one here, a 10-watt, which is actually what's used in a lot of homes. It's used currently for a lot of skin conditions, and it's using modern solid-state technology. It too will ionize, but it's not doing it with not only a spark gap, but it's not using a Tesla coil. It has a high-voltage coil, but it's not necessarily a Tesla coil. But it does still do a lot of good. So this is a schematic representing the type of technology that's typically in use and was in the patent. I picked this image simply because it was the cleaner of many I had seen. But so in 1889, Nikola Tesla went to a conference, it wasn't Tesla Tech, and he met Heinrich Hertz, who did a presentation, and it fascinated Tesla. And so Tesla was so intrigued, he ran experiments on his own for a few years, and the result of his experiments, based on what he understood from Hertz, it resulted in the development of the Tesla coil that we know today. And Tesla eventually envisioned the Tesla coil, as you all know, being used for wireless lighting and power. So Tesla had taken what he had experimented in his experiments and learned, and he brought the very first violet ray at the World Columbian Exposition and presented it in 1893. Most of the antique violet rays in the U.S. were produced before the Depressionary era, I want to say 1920s and 30s. And there was a lot of manufacturers in the ballpark. Imagine like a car today. A lot of people make cars, but they all have the ability to drive on the road together. So that's kind of what happened with the violet ray. reading as I'm talking, unfortunately. So a lot of the companies who manufactured the violet rays were already in the business of manufacturing other electrical appliances as well. So it wasn't too far a jump for them. Tesla promoted the medical use of the electromagnetic spectrum overall. He suggested to physicians that different voltages and currents could be used to treat a variety of conditions. His endorsement came at a time when trained doctors as well as shrewd hucksters were already experimenting with electrotherapy and ultraviolet light to help patients or to make a buck. And that making a buck part, by the way, is what kind of made things difficult for folks. Depending on your perspective of outlandish claims, it ranged from therapeutic helping people like Edgar Cayce was to maybe a salesman trying to sell his machine or their machine and making bad claims. Many companies who were able to continue manufacturing violet rays after the Depression stopped did so after World War II, but because of World War II, they had to stop manufacturing those violet rays. And so radio coils and other electrical components for the war effort had to be done. The violet ray mass appeal kind of ended with a really big lawsuit in the 1950s. And that lawsuit was designed to create financial suffering for a very specific company and everybody who was even thinking of bringing forward violet rays in the future. And so the company itself was bankrupt. The founders of the company were bankrupt. It was pretty massive. The most important thing is people were getting healed and helped by these devices. And so let's look at kind of some of the patent devices of the time. So here's an example of a handheld device. As you can see here, there's a cable coming out of the back of the handheld unit that goes over to a base station. And the Tesla coil actually exists in the handheld portion. Over here, those of you that have used the Tesla coils in science labs will recognize this is a handheld unit. It has a power cord that plugs into the wall and has an adjustable section back here, which the electromechanical aspect takes place. And even today, these are still built and available. So this is the schematic that I'll be talking about, and I pulled forward. I'm kind of looking over the chat. I have to stop doing that. I'm going to try to work with Steve and find good questions to answer. So Tesla, as you all know, he wanted to find the secrets of the universe, and he asks everybody to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And all I want to say is figure number 4 here, this schematic, is a great representation of just that, the energy, frequency, and vibrations that take place. And this is the exciting part for me that I wanted to share with everybody. So looking at this schematic, we're going to pull out some really interesting things here. So there's an inductor, they call them. Today we call them a capacitor, and that's this guy, number I, or letter I. And F1 is the spark gap, which is right here above the coil. And the coil is made up, this charge coil, this coil is made up of 2 types of coils. There's a charge coil and a solenoid coil. And again, energy, frequency, and vibration comes into effect. And everything comes out to the handheld unit, which has the Tesla coil K. And it has a gaseous component that goes to it. Let me grab one. So this guy right here is the gaseous component. And so it's a tube that is a vacuum tube that has a residual amount of, in this case, a gas, and it's argon. There's a reason for argon, but nonetheless, it's a gaseous conduction through plasma physics, and you're going to see UV is made from the argon plasma. This is where I'm supposed to ask, are there any questions? But we don't have enough time, I think, right now for questions. But here's the neat thing. This is a resonant tuned LC network. And that's kind of exciting because this component right here ends up going on your body. And so it's going to change the tuning of the LC network, right? And what that means is no matter what, the Tesla violet ray is constantly in tune. And I find that absolutely amazing. How's that possible? What's going on? So let's talk about what's going on. The input power of the charge coils comes right here. In this case, it's AC, 110 outlet. And the spark gap mechanical contactor, what happens is this coil pulls in and it breaks the contact of the normally closed switch here. And when that happens, a spark is created in that gap. At the same time that spark is created from breaking the path of electricity through the capacitor, then there's a collapse. So the coil here, the charge coil, collapses and it sends or induces its voltage and power right into the capacitor. Well, the capacitor ends up being the only device that man knows can take static electricity and hold it into and switch it into a usable form of energy. What I mean by that is you can electrostatically charge a capacitor, however you can discharge it as a DC source for, quote, what we know today for use. So as this coil discharges into the capacitor, the act of collapsing the coil releases not only the initial small amount of energy that went in to charge the coil, but it also brings in a surrounding energy, quantum from the quantum energy, or what we call energy from the vacuum. Those of you that know Tom Bearden's work will understand that he brought forward the idea that the spark in a gas engine at the spark plug is more powerful than the coil could ever have put in the way of actual usable power. And so when that coil collapses and creates the spark in a gas engine spark plug, it's incredible. And so he was so far the only scientist that can mathematically prove this. And so he did win some awards, and the American scientific community gives him credit for this. And this is important for us. So the electrostatic discharge, the plasma, is made from the argon gas. That gas is ionized when that energy that came through the capacitor and out, it's vibrating at a frequency based on the fact that the spark gap is making and breaking depending on the distance of the adjustment of F2. And so these excited gas molecules turn into a plasma, and we see that come out at the end of the violet ray. I can share with you how I use the violet ray. And so I like to say I start with intention. Those of you that remember your physics classes with Morley doing the dual slit experiment, when the energy was observed, it would go in one direction, proving energy is in the form of a wave. And when it's not being observed, it goes in a different direction. And so it's no longer a wave. And so that's kind of interesting. It all boils down to possibly the intention of the observer. And so mind over matter to some degree. So I always like to say, when I use the violet ray for myself or or anybody that I'm working with, it's intention that is very important. Also, voltage level. You don't want to shock somebody to the point where their muscles are twitching and their pain level is very high. So I always start with a minimum voltage and take it up to a point where, you know, it kind of makes sense. You want enough power out of the end of the violet ray to do some good, but also you don't want to harm or make yourself or anybody uncomfortable. You want to apply it for 2 to 8 minute intervals, because if you over apply, say over 10 minutes, you run the risk of burning the coil out of the violet ray, the Tesla coil. Using it over the affected area is one thing, but for nerves, it's also very good, that I found. Applying it to nerves, think about using the spark to stimulate nerves. Believe it or not, that kind of makes sense. I happen to have an eye issue, and I always use it with closed eyes, and it's been fantastic for me. Currently, we're using it for skin, nerves, inflammation, muscle injuries, pain, and according to Cacye, and recently I found this out, and I've been using it across the spine for general health, and I have to admit, I feel pretty good doing that. Any lacerations I have, I just went through a procedure for a rotator cuff surgery, and I really like using this device on that wound. Also, it's reported to reduce anxiety and mental stress and fatigue. So maybe I should have used it before I did this presentation for anxiety. But at any rate, it is known that this type of energy aids in the circulation, and it also specifically aids in the circulation when you have carbon ash in your bloodstream. And that may not make sense right now, but hopefully it will by the end of this presentation. Oh, hang on a second. I got something to share with you. So that's the spark on the skin, and it's mildly painful, but pretty hot. But the idea is to put it on the body, and you can see here it's tuned and changes through my nail. It actually makes things kind of numb. But it works very well. This is almost 100 years old. So if you're looking for any resources, I might suggest an author, Sidney Kirkpatrick. He did a wonderful book called Edgar Cayce, An American Prophet, and goes into really good details on the readings, and readings not just medical, but outside of medical. And of course, there's Tom Bearden, Energy from the Vacuum. I've read his books and just love that information. And every time I get into R&D and I have an opportunity to look at the concepts and principles he has, it's just, for me, fascinating. Apparently, it's very difficult to get this book. So I've included here a link online, and the book has actually been reproduced here under archive.org, and you can read it page by page. So that might be helpful to a lot of people who have heard of him but don't have the book. Association for Research Enlightenment, that's the Edgar Cayce group, ARE. They're wonderful. I enjoy my time with them. And here's the thing. There is currently intellectual property being created with the advent of fusion, and this gaseous conductors book by James Cobain is absolutely amazing. I have a copy from probably the late 50s, early 60s, and the company I work for, we actually mine this book to help create intellectual property. And if you ever wanted to understand a spark gap and what that is from a mathematical standpoint, there it is. I've really enjoyed that. I have to admit, I don't understand all the math that is there, but it is good. If you want to learn more about Tesla's medicine, then Bob Connolly, he's concentrating on UV, and he has a wonderful video on, I can't remember if it's Netflix or not, but you can find it, and there's a link for that as well. I hope that's helpful for everybody. So the other electrotherapy devices concentrates on UV and infrared. So this is an example of the Edgar Cayce lamps. This is the ultraviolet green ray lamp on the left, and on the right here is the infrared. The mercury quartz lamp, ultraviolet, was very much in use in the 1930s. And so it had a green glass filter, which was less destructive UV light. And a company called Burdick had a model called UV-800. It was very popular and used in a lot of sanitariums and places of healing. And you can still find a UV-800 I found on eBay. Anyways, the infrared lamp, it also has a green glass, and it allowed for a deeper kind of penetration within the body towards the bone, and was recommended for no more than 30 minutes of application. But going back to the ultraviolet, there's some interesting science here. Mankind has proved that we can take UV and create vitamin D in milk. We can create vitamin D in all kinds of organic materials. And so the very specific spectrum for UV seems to be in this 300 nanometer range to 350. And so you can make that. In the human body, when the UV stimulates the body, there's very specific functions that take place in the skin. And so we are able to build the precursor and bring that energy into the body through the precursor, and the body will convert that directly into vitamin D. Cayce focused on the green UV to activate carbon ash to stimulate oxygen within the body using a very specific 245 nanometers. And he's using higher nanometer range, but specifically he liked that green glass filter to enable the 245 nanometers. So ash, let's talk about that for a second. A very neat doctor, Smalley and Dr. Curl, they won the 1996 Nobel Peace Prize in chemistry for discovering carbon-60. And carbon-60 is a kind of an interesting carbon, and this particular molecule, it's also present in the ash that was being brought forward by Cayce. So the carbon-60 is resonant light frequencies that it responds to. Specifically, it's responding to the 240 range right about here at max peak, and then it does another peak up here at a higher frequency. So we're looking at 256 nanometers. That the good doctors that won the Nobel Peace Prize, it's awfully close to what Cayce was doing with his lamps. So there's some correlation is what I'm suggesting here. And by ingesting this ash, you're bringing that carbon material into the bloodstream through the body's blood barrier that exists at the stomach level. And it does no harm or damage to anybody. But when the specific nanometers comes in through the skin, it actually triggers a very large oxygen response, which as it goes through the body, it helps kill off pathogens. Now, going to the infrared therapy section, I couldn't find a whole lot on frequencies that Edgar Cayce was using. I'm talking to other people right now that can help me understand the nanometer ranges for the filtrations he has. But this is what's going on today in infrared therapy. And so this 850 nanometer to 1,000 nanometer range allows the infrared energy to go deep within the body towards the bone to help with all kinds of issues that are going on. Those people that are going through chemotherapy are often given this photo therapy, and it reduces a lot of the side effects of chemotherapy. Accelerating the healing of a brain after an injury is also being reported. And this is not Cayce. This is what we're seeing derived from modern science. And on the left here is Cayce's setup for the infrared. Up here we have different colors that you can see with infrared and the different nanometers that are associated with it. Right now, Revive is making LED treatment panels in these very specific frequency ranges, and you can see here on the graph to the right the different levels of penetration these light ranges, light nanometers are affording people. So epidermis, dermis, subcutaneous tissues. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not very good at this. But Vicanor is probably a really good leader in the 660 nanometer range to 850 with their products. And so I'm working with some of these right now and learning more about it. It's work in progress. So thank you for your time. Q&A. It is 6:47. Like I promised, the email for access to me is right there, so please don't hesitate to contact me. What do you think, Steve?
I think it was great. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone out there did. And what's really amazing is that you touched on a lot of technologies that are going to be presented in depth at the conference. With Bailey doing his carbon stuff, and let's see what else here. And Bailey was one. Joe, we know with his lasers, he's going to be there with the different colors and that. We just it touched what we do. It touches on all this stuff. Yeah,
that's why I can't wait to go to your conference.
Yeah, and you're going to be there, and people are going to sit and talk with you, in the evenings and that, right? Pretty much. And so I think people need to come to this conference and have a great time. So I think the electrotherapies have made tremendous comebacks over the past 20 to 30 years that I've been doing this. And there's a lot of things to be said about like the Tesla coil. For one, most people don't realize that their car is an 8-headed Tesla coil in the engine.
That's right.
Combustion engine. And Tesla was one of the first people to do the igniters for a combustion engine. I don't think you can understand Tesla because they actually built one yourself and touched it. When you got that big spark coming out of the top, you can actually absorb that. I advise using the key or something, metal, so you don't burn your fingertips.
Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah. And we built things, like one thing we built would be like you take one of those big 5-gallon jugs, with the heavy glass ones, and you could take and you put a cork in that. 2 tubes. One would be like a copper tube, and the other one could just be a solid rod. It don't really matter. But with the tube, you can pull the vacuum out using that tube. You pull a vacuum on that, and then you can bring a gas and you can put gas in, like argon, whatever. You can allow it to go through that tube. And then you attach electrodes to that thing with a Tesla coil, attach electrodes, and you get yourself a giant plasma jar.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where geometry is all important. When Tesla did his inventions, a lot of them are geometrically, symmetrical. And symmetry, people don't understand the importance of geometry. Like, that big glass jar we had, for the vacuum tube we had just described? Well, we tried that for a haunted house one time, and we got bulletproof glass, real thick bulletproof glass, and we put, things to hold it apart, sealed it and everything, and tried to pull a vacuum on it. And when we pulled the vacuum on it, we went in the other room to take a break, and we heard this boom. We come back in there, and this whole glass thing, bulletproof, had just shattered. And that's because, like, on the bottle, the curvature of the bottle compresses when you're pulling the vacuum. Well, the thing is, you're working with a flat surface, so you're trying to do the same compression, and it's going to break it. Okay. The really amazing thing is, when you take and you put all that glass in a garbage can. Okay, like my friend did that, put it in a garbage can, comes out in the garage the next morning, all that glass had jumped out in a circular pattern around that garbage can from the energy that was resonating in that glass.
Oh my God.
So geometry is everything when you're working on these designs. You have to take it into effect. Our inventors these days, they try to, brute force things. And it will work to a point, but you don't really get the subtle effects until you start working on the geometries. So what do you do at work, Fred?
I do forensics analysis on why our hardware fails in the field, and I'm one of many colleagues that are doing this. Our group, there's 3 engineers, and I'm a hardware engineering technician supporting the efforts, and I get paid to play. I got to tell you, it is absolutely fascinating. I'm very blessed to be able to go to work, drive to work excited, play with technology and equipment. And so the gaseous conduction book that I shared with everybody, I actually found that at work. It was recommended that we study that to better understand how electromechanical devices like relays that must not come apart has to be protected. And so there's ways of protecting that sort of circuitry. I guess the best thing have you heard of arc flash?
Is that a company?
No. Okay, so arc flash is a condition where you have just the right amount of energy and frequency, and that energy jumps through the atmosphere and goes to ground, and it creates a hellacious amount of discharge. And so utility substations generally have that. People working in 480 volt and above have this issue, and it literally turns people into carbon instantly, and it's not very healthy. And so we want to be able to understand what's going on. And so gaseous conduction, or atmospheric plasma is what I like to call it, is a fascinating science. Remember I said this violet ray stays in tune no matter where on the body you put it. And so it's constantly, it's a resonant coil that's in resonance no matter what. So I have an idea here. What if we took the odd violet ray, and instead of putting the energy into a vacuum tube to create the discharge for the body, instead put it into some water and create one heck of an effective HHO generator. So that's a little side project that I'm playing with Yeah, I've been a hardware engineer for the company I'm with for 5 years, and I'm getting people excited about things. You just did the presentation on electrogravitics, and I've got two engineers donating equipment and time, and off hours we're actually building some of these things to make a coil fly through the air. So we're excited about what we learned from your presentation.
Well, I like to let people know too, that at our conference we have a lot of people who specialize in electrogravitics that aren't on the schedule. They're going to be there, and they'll probably have a table and that there where they can demonstrate stuff. I think that this conference is that you're gonna have a fun, you have a blast, and your wife is coming now this year too, right?
Right, right. So my wife's going to join me. A gentleman who I met for the first time, Danny Durbal, we met there. It was his suggestion. I'm sure happy he suggested that I meet with him there. He too is bringing his wife, so we can all get together. This is something kind of neat. And I know last year I really enjoyed the social hours. Having that one-on-one time with folks was just it's great. I mean, I can't begin to say it's been a benefit socially. It's been a benefit to find like-minded people. It's difficult to find like-minded people. You all are fantastic.
Well, I've been doing this conference since 1984. That's like over 40 years, 41 years. And
so how come I couldn't find you earlier? I didn't know of you.
Because we're the best kept secret in science.
Yes.
And we're not for, well, we are for everybody. They just don't understand it yet, And, and I share some of your things, like, you do failure analysis at work. And I did the same thing for many years, at Unisys, only I did with semiconductors, and I had to figure out why chips fail. I test chips, they fail. I had to figure out why.
Ooh.
And so you learn how to break things. Even when I worked in college, I was working at AMI, and they built the chairs, for the space shuttles. I'm a rocket scientist. I had one of the first prototype sitting in my office there. It's kind of cool. But my job was to actually break them. And so what can I say? And I think Crypto Alchemist is saying Tesla Tech, the best kept
secret in the science. Yeah.
How about the other one? We believe in hardware, not hot air. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, we've been here many years, and I think our biggest conference was probably in Colorado Springs as a Tesla Society back in probably 96, 97. And we had we filled up 300 hotel rooms plus,
wow.
going into another hotel, for backup, across the street. So, we have a lot of information here that people really need, and need it not now more than ever. We have a lot of problems that could benefit. And like you were talking about the violet ray, I had a friend, he had that, the thing, the claw, where they had to go in, they had to cut the muscle.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he did that operation, and every day he had to go in and he had to press his hand down, and try to get his hand flat. Very painful. But then he was just happening, in our museum, he just happened to be messing with our little violet ray there, and all of a sudden he hit that, and it just popped his hand right open. So there's a lot of good things there for. I mean, it just relaxed his hand totally to where it would not function again.
Yeah.
So he never did have to go get another operation like they wanted to. Electrotherapy is great, and you're talking about the electrode. We had the vacuum electrode or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they put different gases in there for different effects, and they have the vibe machine, they used to call it, which was a 12-headed coil. They had like 12 different gases in that thing, and you're supposed to be exposed to it. It's supposed to help you. But the FDA, they really get on top of things. But now now they're getting political. They got this new guy in there, and he's trying to get rid of all the scientists, and that's one thing I disagree with, because yeah, we do alternatives and everything, and we march to a different drummer, but the scientific method is always, basically you theorize, you do the experiment, then you come back and redo it, and change the hypothesis into to a theory eventually. But it's all ever changing, and that's the part. You got to have that basic science. You got to have the scientists who have the training in that, some kind of training, and are willing to go out and do the learning on their own. And that's what we excel at, learning on your own here, because a lot of stuff they won't teach you, unfortunately. But I would say, if one word would describe Tesla Tech, would be experimental science. We do experiment.
I would agree with that. Remember, electricity. We can't weigh it, we can't touch it, we can't smell it, but we have all these effects of electricity. And look what mankind has done with it, both in AC and DC. And what if there's another form of electricity that's maybe just in parallel to AC and DC? And so we're beginning to find these aspects out. The whole concept of cold fusion. I mean, is it really debunked? Is it really real? Is it not real? I mean, there's just a lot of fascinating aspects to it. And so I think as mankind learns more about electricity, learns more about magnetism, photonics, that there are kinds of energies and I hate to say it, machines that can be built to help mankind, and in many ways, I'm excited about that. And Tesla Tech brings forward people right on the fringe of doing these sort of things and thinking these ways. And like I said, I really enjoy the social time after. It's a fascinating discussions.
Well, I once talked to Tom Bearden, and he made the comment, that experiments are great and everything, but everything's an anomaly until you can take that anomaly and repeat it enough to where you can actually take and come up with an equation or form it or how it works. Once you can do that and you can turn it into an equation, then it becomes engineering. And until things can be engineered, you have a hard time getting them into that mainstream mode there. And that's where we feel a vital void here. We help people work on the anomalies and get them repetitive to the point where they can start formulating theories in that and start thinking about things again. And all science is based on observation. I mean, they call it our philosophical naturalists is what they call the early scientists.
Interesting. I like that.
So, but anyway, we're going to have to call it night. Does anyone else have any questions on that? And I'd like to have everyone come to the conference and get signed up. If you can't come to the conference, maybe try the live stream. I know it's, I know times are tough out there, but we got to keep living no matter how tough things get, and I'm keeping moving forward, and I hope you all come there. I know a lot of people, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to come and meet people, and I just can't wait to see everyone there. And so here's a few people that we got coming. The drone workshop, that's Paul. And he had to pardon me because my brain just stops working, after 6 o'clock at night for some reason. unless I take my pills. And then we have Bob Grenier. He'll be talk about low energy nuclear reactions. Probably the best example I've seen of that would be I don't know if anyone remembers Joe Champion, but Joe could convert. He was like an alchemist. He made gold. And one of the things he did at our conference is he brought this triple distilled, triple distilled mercury. And at the conference, he had this sodium, and he starts putting slivers of sodium. Now, if anyone knows about sodium, you can't expose that to air. You store it in kerosene, because it keeps the air out. So when you take it and you drop in that, it drops into the mercury, you get these little flare-ups. And you just kept at it until they stop flaring up. Then what you do, you take some distilled water and you put it on top there gently though, because what happens is the sodium is very explosive, and it will explode, in the bubble until you get it all burned off. Then you take and you have a little button there. When you take and analyze that, you'll have gold inside of that button. That is a low energy nuclear reaction. It exists. It's for real. You know, and that's some of the stuff we cover at our conference. No telling what you're going to learn at the conference. No telling who you're going to meet at the conference, or what friends you're going to get. All I can say is you're going to have a great time. And we also have Terrence Howard coming. It's a very rare appearance. You don't get out in public too often like that. So come on down, and we'll see you. And next week we're going to have. We'll be talking about vortexes, loading coils, and sacred geometry. So I'll see you all next week, and thank you for being such kind guests here. Talk to you next week. Thank you, Fred, for being here.